Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. This is an SHR Media Network special report.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for being here with me tonight in the saloon. I greatly appreciate it. It's Sunday night. It's an unusual show. It's an SHR Media Special Report. And I wanted to do this show before you go into the voting booth, and or if you have some other individuals who are on the fence, shall we say. I don't quite know how that would happen, but let's suppose. About Kamala Harris. I want to tell you tonight the truth about Kamala Harris, and that is this, caveat emptor. Make sure you get out to vote. Refer people who are undecided to this video. I would love to have you do that. Then they can take whatever time it will take tonight. I don't know if it'll take an hour. I don't know if it'll take 2 hours. When I'm done, I'm done. But I felt that I had to speak out tonight, now, about the individual that many people are potentially voting for. And I'll just start here. The Democrats were responsible, as I've said, since 2016 for a soft coup against Donald John Trump. OMB, Orange Man Bad, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. And as it was a soft coup as against a presidential candidate, a presidential nominee, a president-elect, and a sitting president. And he is OMB. As I say, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. In keeping with tradition, though, the Democrats are also responsible for the soft coup against Joe Biden, whom I termed Joe Vegetable because, well, he is. This was known overtly and covertly since at least 2020, I suspect much before that. And yet every Democrat and leftist in concert with the American media maggots somehow managed to keep Captain Obvious locked in the underground bunker until June 27th of 2024. And that's when things became just a little bit too blatant, a little bit too indisputable to ignore. Now, no one could have foreseen 2024, perhaps myself, a few others at SHR. It's almost beyond human ken, human realization. When you thought that it just couldn't have gotten more stupid, more fattening, more violent, well, it did. And yet, one solitary event seems to have stalled the Democrat leftist mind when Trump debated Joe Biden on, oh my, let's remove this and let's go directly to the video on June 27th. And this was one of my, basically my favorite events of the night.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
And I'm going to.
And that was the biggest takeaway of that particular night. Then things seemed almost too big to get away with. And despite basically gaslighting uber alles, even Bill Maher was taken aback by this.
Wow. Huh? Huh? Did you see the debate?
And the audience laughs.
In case you missed it, don't
They
worry,
know.
so did one of the contestants. I mean, wow. I mean, Trump told lie after lie after lie. He never would have gotten away with that if Joe Biden was there.
Funny but true.
Wow. Oh, Joe. Come on, man. Joe. You know, Joe, he famously loves trains, but apparently not of thought. I mean, it's just all night confused and halting and trailing off. I've seen beauty pageant contestants answer questions better. I mean, I don't. I don't want to say he shit the bed. His new Secret Service name is Amber Heard. I'm coming on.
Ow, ow, ow. It hurt. And the reason it hurt is because it's true. When you lose Bill Maher, you've lost a good portion of the Democrats. Mind you, now, this was only in June. That was only 4 months ago. Yet it seems, does it not seem to you like eons ago? And I've had people tell me, shriek at me, even on the alleged conservative side, that I should be kinder, in more circumspect in my evaluations of Joe Vegetable, including that appellation. In response, I say something similar to Senator Go to Hell. Let's allow a modicum of truth to escape. This is the biggest American, well, now, this was past tense, one of the biggest American political scandals to have occurred before and after Watergate. But it only gets worse. The leftist cabal in the DNC has for years covered up the ghastly incompetence and decrepitude of an old man solely to ensure that Bernie Sanders would not achieve the presidency. That's the point right there. Now, Sanders, if you know anything about him, I have to say I admire him a little bit, because he will tell you exactly what he is. And he doesn't change his positions. If he had a position in 1923, then his position is the same today. I give begrudging respect to Bernie Sanders. However, everyone should have realized that when Bernie Sanders, who meant what he said about stopping the corruptive torrents of cash into political coffers, could not be let anywhere near presidential powers. The Democrats finally realized this and took his words to heart. They couldn't afford to have the cash taps righty-tighty, much less potentially turned off entirely. Had they kept Sanders, that could have occurred. So Joe Vegetable was selected as the empty suit, the dancing puppet at the end of the Obama, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, Ron Klain strings. As Obama himself stated, don't underestimate Joe Biden's ability to fuck things up. True then, true today. You'll find that quote burned in paragraph 724 of the Political article that originally came out with that. Well, what that means is Politico buried the lead. That was very intentional. So, as an aside, the Bidens and the Obamas have never been the best of friends, as Steve Forbes, who Sackhead Sean and I and Sackhead Clint met at the SHR booth at Freedom Fest in 2017 with his bodyguard. And Sackhead Sean poured him some bourbon. And we sat, knocked glasses, and we chatted with Steve Forbes. So as I indicate, the Bidens and the Obamas, not so great bestest of buddies. And Steve Forbes is going to talk about that here, particularly regarding 2016. And this is sort of Biden's immediate endorsement of Kamala Harris with, I believe, the intention of scuttling Kamala Harris. Let's watch and let's listen.
Unprecedented day, but a day that you've been predicting now for over a year. President Joe Biden did officially step down from the 2024 race. What are your thoughts?
It had to happen. It was very clear over 2.5 years ago that he was suffering mental deterioration. And unfortunately, medicine has found no way to stop it or reverse it. And what the real scandal is it was covered up. Political press corps, mostly for the most part, ignored it. Democratic leaders in Congress ignored it. The White House suppressed it. They did everything they could to make it look like he could go. It was amazing that they could get him through one term. But the idea that he would then go for a second term, that is even the bigger scandal. So it had to happen. And the question now is, where do they go from here? We're already beginning to get the outlines of it. And one thing was very interesting. He did that original letter, released that letter on Sunday. And then shortly after.
By the way, stop for just a moment. I'll show you the letter. I will read you the letter to which he refers. That'll be in a few minutes.
To release the endorsement of Kamala Harris as vice president. There's a little history on that. He was the vice president, obviously, under Barack Obama. In 2016, Biden wanted to run for president. And Barack Obama, in the most humiliating way possible, quashed Joe Biden's aspirations to run for president. Said it's going to be Hillary, and did so in a way that both he, Biden, and his wife, Dr. Jill, have never forgotten, never will forget. So he made sure when he withdrew, I don't know whether they intended to do it this soon, but.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Endorse her now. And Barack Obama's clumsy attempt to try to create a condition where perhaps Michelle Obama could run or somebody else could plausibly run was quashed. And what also this shows is that former President Obama, when it comes to that kind of political maneuvering, is not very good. He's no Franklin Roosevelt, a four-term president, who was a master at it. Just one quick story on that. In 1944, in the midst of World War II.
And who would have a story on that? Steve Forbes.
Roosevelt was running for a fourth term. He wanted to get rid of his vice president, a man named Henry Wallace. And Roosevelt did it in a way where there are no fingerprints on it at all. He told Wallace to his face several times, if I were
or as I am wont to say, fingerprints on the knife. Found, amazingly, in your back.
Delegate to the convention, I'd be supporting you. And yet he maneuvered him in a way in which Wallace was dumped, and Harry Truman, they call the Missouri Compromise, senator from Missouri, became vice president and then president. So Obama so far has batted zero in terms of guiding the party. And Biden was going to make sure he was going to have Kamala Harris on the top of that ticket. And if it looked like somebody was going to seriously challenge Kamala Harris, I believed that Biden would have resigned the presidency, made her the incumbent, and there was no way a Democratic convention was going to go against an incumbent president of their own party.
You bring up a really interesting point about former President Obama, and that is he did not endorse Vice President Kamala Harris either when he was writing his statement about President Biden stepping down from 2024. So what do you think is next? Because Democrats largely coalesced around Vice President Kamala Harris to be the presumptive nominee. Some have called for an open convention. What does it look like between now and the convention?
Well, there's just no time. You could make a case that if they had a normal primary season, Kamala Harris wouldn't have done much better than she did when she ran in 2020, had to drop out in 2019 before the first vote was cast. But now they have her. And so they're making the best of what they thought would be an unlikely situation. So it's going to be very hard for somebody to openly go and challenge her. So she has to defeat herself between now and the end of the month. And that's not likely to happen. So unless she did something crazy and they said, oops, let's get another one, it's not going to happen. She'll be the Democratic nominee. And the question is, who will be the running mate and who is going to weigh in on that?
You already know what happened in that. See, I'm taking you on a journey here tonight so that you can see where we're leading and why I'm saying to everyone, Tuesday, caveat emptor. Be very careful before you buy. Now, Jill Biden, mind you, has tasted VP power. And with that opportunity, she could have more. There is, in my opinion, and by the way, I should state as a disclaimer, this show is all about my opinion and no one else's. And in my opinion, there's no one more craven and cynical, a public elder abuser on the planet other than Jill Biden. I submit this, everyone knew. The entire Biden presidency was and is a massive conspiratorial scam. Every family member, every DNC sycophant, every assistant, every White House and Oval Office worker, the Secret Service, every Democrat, Psaki, KJP, every bit of the American media maggots were all in on the scam 24/7, 365. It was a scam, a grift, a naked power grab behind an old man who, injected with way too many chemical cocktails, finally fell apart before the eyes of the planet. That's what happened. And everyone was told they were stupid, ignorant, conspiratorial, biased, ridiculous to think Joe Vegetable wasn't in top form in his prime. Well, now that's interesting because here are the American media maggots telling us just how stupid we are for believing our lying eyes.
And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
She knows so long as she was denied.
In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been.
Right.
President Biden has a photographic memory. His understanding and mastery of a complicated geopolitical situation, remarkable.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
I was sitting, 2 feet from him across the table, and he was, intense.
Have trouble walking sometimes? Yeah, so did FDR. He wanted GD war.
But he's totally focused.
So did FDR. FDR was in a wheelchair. He required a cane and a wheelchair and support to walk. That's where these people go.
He's very sharp. They say he's sharp in meetings and so on.
Very lucid, very well informed. Biden is stately and he comes with gravitas. There hasn't been, as far as I know, a single claim that Biden made a mistake. Ageism is an issue. Americans have a rich history.
Was he talking about a mistake in clothing?
Of holding people's physical characteristics against them. Okay, you can ask African Americans.
He's older. That doesn't mean that he is unfit, and there's a lot of ageism there.
Now, this age attack, this obsession by the right.
Joe Biden may not be able to speak for himself the way that he used to.
They want to think to take on government if we get out of line, which they're talking again about. And that's him.
I think people should be speaking up for Joe Biden.
Americans and reporters in the media are just judging him by a physical appearance, and it's horribly unfair. Age
is an asset.
He showed exactly how with it he is. The flip side of this coin is that he has a tremendous amount of wisdom and experience. Have you heard any concerns from
which, by the way, he can't remember.
Anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower?
No.
More wild speculation from a bunch of people who have probably never been in a room with Joe Biden and certainly don't have medical degrees that I'm aware of.
You don't get paid for performance to be president. You don't. The job is not a job of endurance. I don't see Donald Trump out bike riding like Joe Biden.
It's the Hillary's email. All they have is that he's old. He can clear a dementia bar, and that's probably a win.
The media are not fair, and they're getting less and less fair, and things are frightening. You have Wall Street Journal running a horribly sourced piece saying that Biden is unfit.
Dubious Wall Street Journal report about the president's acuity.
Shoddy story by the Wall Street Journal questioning Biden's mental fitness.
Wall Street Journal story had a lot of flaws, as you said.
Flaws.
But Sinclair, they didn't do any original reporting. They didn't follow up. They didn't do any work.
Here today, Hirsch Goldberg Poland is still. He is not here with us, but he's still being held by Hamas.
But a huge part of the Mueller report talks about Russian disinformation tactics. And one of the themes this election cycle is that Joe Biden is too old to lead. And so everyone is seizing upon this. And it is a classic disinformation tactic. And I think the best thing that we can do is to prepare the American people for this false narrative.
It's a false narrative. You and I know that. The binder knew that. KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, a threefer herself, called videos of Biden being Biden cheap fakes. They were cheap fakes. And she said that quite clearly. Which by the way, the American media maggots gladly regurgitated out countless times for consumption by the sheepses. What these... I almost said it, the word asshole. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't mean to say that. What these assholes did to Joe Vegetable is precisely what a violent domestic abuser does to their spouse. It's all a staggering con job. Nothing more than Barack Hussein Obama, third term, and a guy that actually wants his own fourth term. Did we, by the way, forget
what you know now? Do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what? If I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. Wow. I'd be fine with that.
What you need to know is this. I'm absolutely convinced that Barack Hussein Obama spoke the truth, that he has an actual disdain for getting his hands dirty, for dealing with people like us, for dealing with the great unwashed, so to speak. And that's essentially who we are to him. Having to be accountable to us. He almost never wished to be accountable. He certainly was never transparent to us little people, the peons, the groundlings, doing the work.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Shaking the hands, being accountable, being responsible, attending all the meetings, glad handing photo ops, all the political dreck associated with POTUS. He frequently believed, I truly believe, and I would wager you probably yourself got that impression, that it was all beneath him. And frequently the arrogance would literally ooze through his vocals, because I don't think he could help it. He couldn't. If he could command absolutely and let somebody else be the face, he'd be okay. He'd be fine. Sometimes you simply have to take people at their word, like Islam. When they say they want to kill you, well, they really want to kill you. And now, used up, washed up, Joe Vegetable is finding himself washed and flushed down the Democrat toilet like a dripping soiled tampon. I'm not going to reference tampon at this point. Not enough time in the day for that. He's already so yesterday's news. So look at June 21st, the New York Times. Misleading videos are trailing Biden as he battles age doubts. Then June 28th, post-debate, New York Times. It's frightening. Democratic voters worried by Biden's struggle in the debate. I'm not making this up. I'm not making these videos up. There's no need. I don't have to. So let's continue with Joe Biden, because I like to allow he and others to speak in their own words, so to speak. Joe?
On my watch, instead of Infrastructure Week, America's having infrastructure decade. Over $1.3 billion. Trump
$1.3 trillion.
Talks the talk. We walk the walk. Look, he likes to say America's a failing nation. Frankly, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Let me pause here just for a second. Let's remember, though, even in January of this year, seems so long ago, none, zip, zero, the null set, not one media outlet here or on the planet hammered Joe Biden for incomprehensibility. Had Trump done that, just that, right there, it would have been replayed for weeks on end. You know it, I know it, Democrats and leftists know it, and the American media maggots know it as well.
I see shovels in the ground, cranes in the sky, people hard at work rebuilding America together.
Whoa, what was all of that? Well, all of that was a word salad. Now, if you remember, I made fun of Joe Biden for that, of the word salad. Well, again, roll with me here. We'll continue on that vein. But now we realize that it was the biggest lie, the largest calumny in the history of American politics. It makes Watergate kind of look like kindergarten play involving toddlers, because everyone, and I mean everyone, in the White House, the Oval Office, the Joe Vegetable regime, the Democrats, leftists, the American media maggots, Kamala Harris, were all, absolutely all, complicit. You know, in a way, you can't blame Biden. As Joe Biden, he was initially motivated and later puppeted by his own avarice when a semblance of cognition was still remaining, pushed by the duplicitous power monger. That's exactly what she is, Jill Biden. As Joe Vegetable, however, he was all over the top obvious as a proxy for Obama, just as you heard. Rice, Joe Biden, Ron Klain, et al., as evidenced by you remember all the videos with the fake snap in his step, his getting lost on innumerable stages, reading texts from cards out loud, meant only to guide him. Do we remember? Anybody remember this? Here's a close-up of his guidance card. Oh, and it tells him how to pronounce names. And then it tells him who he is. You squaring your shoulders to look for that. That's his cheat sheet. That was there on his very first press conference. Everything on that was prearranged. And here's another photo of that. Biden's cheat sheet, by the way, tells him how to sit. Everything prearranged. News Nation's story on his cheat sheets and pre-selected quotes and answers happens to be right here. Let's watch.
Well, President Biden was caught holding a cheat sheet with reporter questions on it during yesterday's press conference with the South Korean leader. You can see it. It has the date, how to pronounce the reporter's name, and then exactly what the reporter was going to ask. The photo is fueling speculation about the 80-year-old commander-in-chief's mental acuity as he is gearing up to run for 4 more years in office. I do want to bring in Dr. Lauren Wright, professor of politics at Princeton University, and John Opdyke, president of Open Primaries, advocating for election reform. Thank you both for being here.
Sure.
Dr. Wright, let's start with you. Is this the big deal some critics are making it out to be? Does this leave the president open to questions about his age just a couple days after his announcement?
I mean, I do think there's a difference between using notes in the margin of the speech, even having clues about a reporter's name, and having a question written word for word. I think the latter is very problematic and does raise questions about fairness in addition to Biden's age. But
this was revealed some time ago. This was known some time ago, and yet completely ignored, completely unaddressed. No one wanted to know it. No one wanted this information to get out. And people have asked, okay, BZ, where is your empathy for Joe Biden? My empathy for Joe Biden doesn't exist, or his wife, or his family. They all put themselves on Front Street, playing the big game, playing for all the political marbles, and the moment he or those helping or deciding for him insisted on his insertion into the big leagues, that's where he wanted to be. The gloves were off. And he became a target for my truth, which is Biden is an incontinent, wandering, embarrassing vegetable. And it's clear. The Biden crime family has sucked at the teat of the American taxpayer for literally decades, enriching themselves at the expense of those who can't assemble a savings account, who can't keep jobs, who watch their jobs, their businesses, their communities, their education, their children, their families destroyed first by lockstep Wuhan 19 sycophants in the federal government and the state governments and the local governments, then by drugs, overdoses, deaths, and the installation of Joe Biden, who in his very first act throttled the very energy industry, which launched the instigation of expanding, then exploding inflation, while, by the way, simultaneously destroying American national security and sovereignty and displaying weakness for every U.S. enemy to see in plain view. And then there's this. Let's watch and listen.
And age is not an issue. Fitness is a question that he proves time and time again. He's ably fit.
One of the appeals of Joe Biden and the reason he was elected president is because of his age.
You're very clear that you do not have any concerns about President Biden's age or his fitness to be president.
There's just a cynicism, really, and an ageism, but there's no evidence that he slowed up.
There's no evidence to suggest that he...
I repeat, I may be hammering this home maybe a little bit too far. Maybe it's time to move on. But you have to ask, well, reasonable people have to ask themselves, how does it occur that folks making, I don't know, what's a congressional wage? $170,000, $175,000, I think. How do people making $175,000 in Congress leave DC politics as millionaires? There's only one way: insider trading, insider knowledge, cheating, corruption. That's a story for another day. But this is another stepping stone that we're taking on this journey tonight. And then came the oncoming November presidential election, the debate, the utter collapse of Joe Vegetable that affected, well,
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Everything. Why, however, was that debate the proverbial tipping point when up to then, a simple declaration by Democrats and leftists was sufficient to soothe the fevered brows and most every one of the nipple suckers? Because the gig was truly up. The truth was out. To the point that the sphincters of Democrat donors, and here's the point, Monye, Honye. The gig was up. The sphincters of Democrat donors clenched and began to withhold the actual and true mother's milk of all politics, cash. Now then, the outward cry from Democrats when cash was the focus then became unelectable. Unelectable. But because I speak leftist, I can translate. That meant, whereas the spice must flow, it was now slammed shut. Oh my God, did we install Joe Biden only to have the ghost of Bernie Sanders interrupt our cash? This cannot stand. Joe must go. The pressure was on. And as you recall, Hollywood, by way of George Clooney, via Barack Hussein Obama, they leaned in hard, as did a small but expanding cadre of Democrats. He must step aside for the good of the order, they bleated. And the American media maggots dutifully took up the clarion call. And with that, those who shrieked that Trump and Republicans were every possible threat to democracy, though, of course, we're a republic, were themselves complicit in shutting down the very democracy to which they referred. Your 14 million votes, Democrats, suddenly didn't mean caca. What's worse, it's apparent Democrats didn't care then, don't care now. Kamala Harris truly did become the anointed one. That's Democrat and leftist democracy, in their words, at work. So Kamala Harris was installed as nominee before the August 19th DNC convention in Chicago. There wasn't a debate at the convention, no opportunity for a debate at the convention, no opportunity to challenge her. These delegates for Biden swapped for Harris, and like the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway, the 14 million votes, they don't matter. The threat to democracy is, in fact, via Democrats. Period. It's an autocracy, providing zero access for the questioning. We're going to go into that more in a little bit. Another moment. Another interesting point is I found this quote from George Orwell. In the case of a word like democracy, not only is there no agreed definition, but the attempt to make one is resisted from all sides. It is almost universally felt that when we call a country democratic, we are praising it. Consequently, the defenders of every kind of regime claim that it is a democracy and fear that they might have to stop using the word if it were tied down to any one meaning. Thank you. So even though Joe Vegetable, up to the very last second, if you remember about him, remember what he said? Dude, he was in it to win it. So Veggie said he was staying unless his health was affected. So do you remember when in steps Wuhan 19 on cue, just as commanded? Then let's go back a little ways. Let's go back to July 13th, whilst at an outdoor rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. President Trump was almost assassinated on live TV by a 20-year-old whose name doesn't bear repeating, killing a good and kind American citizen that I would like to remind everyone of, named Corey Comparator. He was 50 years old, whose final act was shielding his wife and his daughter. Also seriously injured was 57-year-old David Dutch and James Copenhaver, 74. Both, thankfully, were released from the hospital in something of a short order, but their wounds will truly never heal. And we know that for a fact. This is not the time or the place to review the assassination attempt. There are thousands of questions and very few, if any, reliable answers. But of course, the American media maggots did their level best to minimize the event, saying that Trump fell down and was aided and abetted by the despicable FBI director, Wray, who stated in an open congressional hearing that, well, Trump was hit by shrapnel, which the FBI itself later updated by stepping on their very own director, walking back the statement, which was, in my way of thinking, actually very truly delicious. Now, I have to say this because I've said it in my social media for quite some time. And again, this is my opinion, my show. I firmly believe the FBI in its current iteration is nothing more than the weaponized arm of the DNC and leftists. It is a corrupt, anti-American terrorist organization. What's the definition of terrorism? Then you tell me if you think it is terrorism. The unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in pursuit of political aims. Hey, I'm going to do this to me. That seems accurate. So Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots pretended to be appalled regarding the attempted assassination, but in truth, they were actually terribly disappointed. There are articles about this. They were disappointed it wasn't successful. They said Donald Trump's harsh language brought this on all by himself, while doing everything a cornered animal can do to overthrow the nation while pretending that they're the ones trying to save our democracy. This is from Just the News. John Solomon. I love his site. Poll shocker. 28% of Democrats think Americans are better off, and America is better off if Trump had been assassinated. That was back in September 18th of this year. New Scott Rasmussen poll shows Americans think anti-Trump rhetoric is the main reason for the assassination attempt. In a shocking display of how vitriolic U.S. politics have become, more than a quarter of Democrats believe America would be better off if GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump had been killed during one of the 2 assassination attempts on his life. The new poll of 1,000 registered voters taken by veteran pollster Scott Rasmussen's Neapolitan News Institute after the second assassination attempt on Trump revealed that 17% of voters say it would have been better for America had Donald Trump been killed that weekend. That figure included a whopping 28% of Democrats, the survey indicated. So it's all make believe and pretend, like children. Shh, don't say that. You can't say that. And you're certainly not supposed to have articles written about that. Then, if you remember, we're going back in time on this journey. The global CrowdStrike update failure occurred on July 18th, and Biden withdrew from presidential nomination 3 days later on Sunday, July 21st. After that, the assassination attempt on Donald John Trump was completely memory holed by the American media maggots. Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Vegetable, and we know why. Biden suddenly backed Harris as his replacement. Now, I told you that I would show you this really bizarre letter that was released regarding Biden's taking himself out of the presidential race. And this letter never explains why. And it's, please note, as people have pointed out before, it's not on either official White House or Oval Office letterhead, with a signature that really doesn't quite match anything that we've seen before in terms of Joe Biden's signature. And here's the letter itself. My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Bull. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. Bull. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation. Bull. In lowering prescription drug costs for seniors. Bull. And in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. Bull. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. Bull. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Oh, huge bull. We've protected and preserved our democracy. And we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. Massive bull.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's been the great honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail. My deepest gratitude, blah, 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 blah. Not one time in there was it made clear as to why he was stepping down. Why unofficial? Why the letterhead? No letterhead, I should say. And this is how it occurred. I feel pretty comfortable about that. Now, up until this point, this is very interesting. We were hearing that Biden had no trust in Harris. Democrats had no trust in Harris, a person who acquired 0 delegates in the 2020 presidential race and didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus. Barack Hussein Obama took his sweet time in endorsing Cami Cackler. He did, in fact, eventually end up doing that. Even something I found absolutely gobsmacking, BLM. And that's not the Bureau of Land Management. Even BLM weighed in on the crowning investiture of Cami, installing Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee and an unknown vice president without any public voting process would make the modern Democratic Party a party of hypocrites. Imagine that. Well, in retrospect, what were the Biden-Harris accomplishments anyway? That every Democrat should automatically bankroll their trust and confidence in the apparently unchallenged transition from Joe Vegetable, then firmly to Cami Cackler. Well, here are some of the Biden-Harris accomplishments. You can read these for yourself. But now it's just a love fest. Replete with basically ass-shaking black chicks, fake Southern accents, just like Cami's mentor, Hillary Clinton, back in 2015, if you recall. Nothing like pandering and slapping the faces of black voters with shocking buckets full of dripping condescension. But now is the time. Now we're going to delve into Kamala Harris herself, because we have to understand, and that's the goal for this show, to understand just who is this person named Kamala Devi Harris. Most deaf and Indian middle name, to make sure. What is her history and how can it be traced directly back to California and a powerful political patron? Now, she was born in Oakland, California. She was born a poor black child, stolen from Stephen Martin. She turned 60 on October the 20th. Her mother's Indian. Her father is Jamaican. In 1990, she was hired as a deputy DA for Alameda County, which encompasses Oakland and the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay in California, always spell it with a K. And here's where it begins. That is to say, the lies and the fellation and all of that nonsense. Per Wikipedia, in 1994, Speaker of the California Assembly, Willie Brown, who was then dating Harris, appointed her to the State Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and later to the California Medical Association Commission. Appointed. Well, had she not known Willie Brown, do you think those appointments would naturally have occurred for someone unfamiliar with insurance and unfamiliar with medical assistance? Of course not. MNM, merit matters not. And the lie, of course, promulgated by Democrats and leftists is that Willie Brown wasn't married. I'm sure you've heard this. Willie Brown wasn't married, as he was swiving the crap out of Kamala, then 29, and Willie, then 60, from 1994 to 1995. So I'm going to be blunt. That's kind of why you come here, I would expect. Willie Brown was still married. Kamala was screwing a married man. And he was tapping some young chickadee, literally half his age, and by dint of that, used his political power to place his little strumpet into political positions of power and burgeoning wealth, because she had, well, the appropriate knee pads and a dutiful amount of vacuum. Anyone telling you different is lying. She hitched her wagon to power by way of sexual favors in an illicit affair. How else can you describe that? No more complicated than that. An age-old power dynamic between men and women. Now, the Federalist has an interesting article. The media won't tell you political corruption defined Kamala Harris's affair with Willie Brown. This was from an article in July of 24. The New York Times says it's sexist to question why Harris had an affair with a powerful political boss twice her age, but the facts they're not telling you are damning. Well, imagine that. I'm here to tell you the facts. Harris herself admits her career benefited significantly from said relationship. Other Democrats share the perception that she did not earn her positions. See what I did there? Positions. And Harris, a lawyer who initially she first failed her bar exam, can only say that she brought a level of life knowledge and common sense rather than actual qualifications or merit to the jobs Brown appointed her to. But yet it's a sexist insinuation to insist these facts are rather unflattering to Kamala. So then, once in office, Harris then dropped or pled out corruption charges against friends of Willie Brown. That happened. The prior DA, Hallinan, had been pushing and pursuing. There were a number of Brown friends let off the hook, most noticeably a guy with a sweetheart deal with a notorious city contractor caught defrauding the city of San Francisco by using inferior recycled concrete in sensitive projects such as parking garages and the Bay Bridge. This compromised the structural integrity of those projects and endangered lives. But Harris dropped all the fraud charges and accepted a guilty plea on a single count involving environmental violation. One environmental violation. So, you know what? That really doesn't seem to be a problem, right? Because if the Bay Bridge falls down again, well, what'll happen is that the state of California will just fleece the local, state, and federal taxpayers for more money. I remind you, she loved Jussie Smollett. And also, she loves rioters, which I must remind you of. Never forget that Kamala Harris is, and again, this is my opinion, my show, so I get to say it. She's an intentional racist, full well buying into a racist hoax, DEI, reparations, and the rest of the racist industrial complex. So let's talk about the real Kamala Harris, because there's a very distinct reason why she has no real policy on her website, why it isn't nailed down, why it wasn't nailed down from day one, and she can't quite embrace huge Hamas terrorists, though she desperately loved to. She has never really, truly not embraced any terrorists. She loves them all. So anybody with a molecule of common sense in their wheelhouse knows that, as the saying goes, the best predictor of future behavior is past performance or the lack thereof. And that's why I'm here tonight. This demands illustration. Caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. Because a shit ton of ignorant people are willing to sacrifice a massive percentile of American history in order to usher in emotions over facts and common sense, because they fail to see beyond their one-trick pony issue, hot and cold running abortions on demand. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion, right up to birth, is healthcare. Now, screw the thousands of Americans who would love to have a child if more children were put up for adoption. But adoption? Nah. Most infants must die because things are simply inconvenient. That's the true Cami Cackler. She is a massive leftist, make no mistake. Damn near a full-on communist. Once, if elected, she will kick everything moderate she ever said and revert to her true self, an unlikable, snake-like, backstabbing communist, even harder report than Barack Hussein Obama. Well, that is quite the feat. Gad Saad said it best, and I think I'm going to put this up here for you to see. I'm going to try to be as diplomatic and restrained as I can. Kamala Harris is a vacuous, lobotomized, shallow, inauthentic imbecile. Wait, where's this? Accurate. She knows nothing. She has achieved nothing. She has used every non-meritocratic tool to climb her political career. She is a racist. Have you heard that before? She is divisive. She promotes the cancer of diversity, inclusion, and equity. She is the Justin Trudeau of the United States. Beware.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And of course, I have to mention something, another factual little article. Cami was ranked the most liberal senator in 2019, an internet page, oddly enough, that has since managed to vanish at either the push, blackmail, or convincing of govtrack.com once the information emerged into the mainstream. That is to say, it was okay back in 2019, but once people became aware of this, then you got to make that go away. This is from Fox News. Webpage that rated Kamala Harris as the most liberal senator in 2019 suddenly disappears. This is back in July this year. GovTrack, an organization that tracks congressional voting records, confirmed to Fox News Digital it had removed a 2019 webpage that ranked Kamala Harris as that year's most liberal U.S. senator sometime within the last 2 weeks. The self-declared and described Government Transparency Agency and website scored Harris as the most liberal, this is a quote, the most liberal compared to all senators in 2019, outranking Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren at the same time. But the webpage with the ranking, which was widely covered in news reports during the 2020 election, was suddenly deactivated. The link now displays a page not found 404 message. The Internet Archive shows the page was deleted sometime between July 10th and July 23rd, with some people on X claiming the page was still up on July 22nd. So it was confirmed to Fox News Digital the page was removed sometime in the last 2 weeks of July, but it didn't give a specific date. Asked why the pages were removed when single-year report cards were abandoned years ago, he said, I was focused on more impactful aspects of our work. I speak leftist, so I'll translate. It was garnering too much attention, so we had to remove it at the behest of our good friend, Kamala Harris. So I'd like to point out an important aspect here. Bernie Sanders is an admitted Democrat socialist, and Harris was determined even back then in 2019 to be left of him. So as I said, I speak leftist, so we got caught with our pants down, revealing the truth, and we had to cover it up like sand in a cat box, which was done. And so By the way, Cammie doesn't want you to see this interview from CBS because it was actually covered. So I have that right here. Let's listen for, I don't know, say 23 seconds or so.
You're very different in the policies that you've supported in the past. You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
Yeah. Well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator. You supported the Green New Deal. You supported Medicare for all.
Oh, but wait, as BC is frequently wont to say, but wait, there's more. Do you suspect there's more? So the internet, while revealing, can also be some real slim, shady kind of stuff. You just have to know where and how to look. Let's move on. So encapsulate, if you would please, BZ, some of the things that Kamala Harris has done. Co-sponsored Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All Act, sponsored a bill providing illegal invaders with the right to legal representation, expressed support for sanctuary cities, introduced legislation to block the implementation of the Trump travel restrictions, touted the agreement at COP28 to phase out fossil fuels, sponsored a bill requiring DOJ to award grants to replace cash bail systems, sponsored a bill to advance the Green New Deal, sponsored a bill banning DHS from using federal funds to build or expand immigration detention facilities. Well, ask yourself, why that? Why block facilities? Wait, do you not see? Of course you do. I know you do. That's why you listen. That's why you watch. Because then, with no facilities, all the illegal invaders have to be released out into the ozone. So Democrats and leftists bleed about the ruination of democracy, but as the very wise, I'd love to get this guy on my show. He has not yet responded. Victor Davis Hanson, he wrote, "The only destroyers of democracy are the Democrats themselves." And
how to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement. Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
For idiot Democrats and leftists, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And the coups against democracy were committed by Democrats. Here's an article by Victor Davis Hanson. I'm going to read a good portion of this because he really manages to summarize this up. The article is entitled Coup Upon Coup Upon Coup. In March of 2020, all the major Democrat primary candidates abruptly, mysteriously, and in near unison withdrew from the presidential race, ceding the nomination to Joe Biden. Yet Biden had lost the first 3 races in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, and only won his first victory in South Carolina. Suddenly, on the eve of Super Tuesday mega primaries, the candidacies of frontrunner Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, and others simply evaporated. Remember the reason I said? The fear of a frontrunner, Sanders' socialist victory and nomination, and thus an enviable landslide loss to incumbent Donald Trump in the general election, had prompted the donor class and shadowy political invaders and insiders to act. Can't have that. Ruh-roh. Biden's vegetable nature became too big to ignore in the debate. That's me commenting. Democrats demonized anybody critical of Biden's obvious mental decline. They're smearing crested during Biden's now aborted 2024 re-election bid, even as Biden could no longer display even a veneer of mental and physical engagement. BC injects at this point, your lying eyes are deceiving you. Listen to what we say, not what you see. So VDH continues. Suddenly on a Sunday, July 21st, just days left before state ballots were formalized with the names of the party official nominees, And on the eve of the Democrat convention, party bosses, mega donors, and Obama puppeteers went into action for yet a third time. They reportedly threatened candidate Biden with a complete loss of any further campaign funding, the mother's milk of everything, money, and raised the specter of invoking the 25th Amendment to end his presidency should he not suddenly withdraw from the race and endorse VP Kamala Harris as his surrogate on the ticket. In one moment, as I said before, the choices of nearly 15 million Biden primary voters were vitiated. No delegates were consulted. No other alternative Democrat candidates were even considered. Biden was dethroned. It was a coup. Harris was coronated without much public input or knowledge of even how or why. He didn't explain that in his letter, did he? VDH so wonderfully nails this. Democrat insiders. Okay, that's me saying Democrat, but you know how I operate. Come on, move on. Democrat insiders not only removed their leading candidate, who for the prior 6 months had won all the 2024 primaries and almost all the delegates, but insisted that Biden keep Democrats and himself in power, but only if he agreed to quit the race. So in sum, at the 11th hour of a 2-year re-election effort, a cabal arbitrarily decided that Joe Biden might well lose the Democrats, the White House, and the Congress. So what they did is they reversed course, now claiming his dementia was so acute as to destroy their November prospects. But mysteriously, his decline was not severe enough to imperil the American people, whom Biden must continue to lead until January 20th of 2025. Bad for them. Okay for you. Finger on the nuclear button. No problem. Furthermore, the boss's replacement choice, VP Kamala Harris, had entered no primary. She never won a single delegate. Harris also never captured a single delegate in her first and only presidential run back in 2020. She then dropped out of the race even before the first Iowa and New Hampshire balloting. We now, says VDH, we now have witnessed 3 left-wing veritable coups. Coups, geez. But hey, geez, like Canadians above me, geez. But hey, all in the name of democracy. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, that evil Donald John Trump, OMB, was a continuing existential threat to democracy. Suddenly it was 1967. I lived through that. It was 1967 all over again. It was the summer of love and joy, as regaled by Kamala Harris, as a matter of fact. And good little Democrat sycophants circled the wagons in order to support a darker female. You can't really call her black. She's Jamaican and Indian. 20 plus years Biden's junior, who likewise couldn't string a cogent sentence together absent the wonders of modern teleprompters. You don't possibly think that I'm going to have some kind of an example of that, do you? So at first blush, at 20 or 30 seconds, she was great. She was wonderful. She was both great and wonderful until she opened her mouth and attempted to speak, and history caught up to her. This is the true Kamala Harris right here. This is what she really believes, despite the massive amounts of flip-flops. I've played this before. You've heard this before. Maybe some haven't. Let's continue.
Very different in the policies that you've supported.
Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's go to this. You've seen this before, but for new listeners tonight, let's listen and watch.
My values have not changed.
Reduce red meat specifically. Yes.
The Boston Marathon bomber, they should be able to vote.
I think we should have that conversation.
Abolish ICE. Yeah. Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, I'm in favor of banning fracking. I am prepared to pass a Green New Deal. I support a mandatory buyback program. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross borders criminals. The idea that more police equals more safety, that's just wrong.
Policing, as we know, goes all the way back to slave patrols and that idea.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Where do you stand on defund the police?
We need to take a look at these budgets.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. 70 to 80% tax rate. I think that's fantastic.
Chipping now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? Yeah, I am radical. I do believe that we need to get radical about what we are doing.
My views haven't changed. She said that time and again. My views haven't changed. She's a leftist. She's a massive leftist. I continue with this as well that you've heard before. Remember, she wasn't the border czar, except, yeah, she was the border czar. Wasn't she? Sure she was.
Border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by...
Okay, and the American media maggots continue with that, saying, oh, no, she was never the border czar, although the American media maggots are all over the place, having already said, well, yeah, she was the border czar. What's wrong with you? Oh, she also believes that the police should be defunded. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, she does.
Activists right now are calling for a defunding of the police. The Minneapolis City Council just agreed on a bill on this. Right before I came to tape the show, there was a clip on CNN from a Minneapolis City Councilwoman who said, quote, it's a place of privilege if someone breaking into your home wants to call the police. This is gaining a lot of steam. Nancy Pelosi this morning just...
Okay. Subtle racism. It's a privilege if you can call the police, intimating that, oh, poor black people, they don't have a phone and they're not aware of crime and they're not aware of their circumstances. And so if you have the wherewithal and the technical ability to call the police when you actually need them, I'm sure you can do the math on that one.
Just refused to answer if she would
racists
support defunding the police. I just want to know from you, do you support defunding and removing police from American communities? And if not, why do you think there's such a hard time being differentiated right now between defunding and reforming police departments?
Oh, parsing. I suspect parsing coming in 3, 2, 1.
So, Megan, I think that a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America.
Right.
Which I support, which is this. We have confused the
weasel words.
The idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities. You put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to healthcare, regardless of how much money people have.
Okay, stop.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Money. You see, all this is about money. Money, money, money. Give us more money. Give us more money for this. Give us more money for that. It's all about money. It's never about the social structure. It's never about the inherent social weakness of various personnel. Paint job is immaterial. It's across the spectrum. But the blame is always, we need more money. We need more money. By the way, did you get the thing that we need more money?
That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities. And
safe and healthy communities. Like Baltimore. Do you folks realize that there are places and streets in Baltimore following the 1968 riots, and Baltimore has spent literally billions, they've been funded billions of dollars. And there are places in Baltimore, there are row houses destroyed. Nothing was done to them to attempt to bring them back for people after having been showered with money. And they're still sitting the way they were since 1968, burned out husks.
And so we really do need to understand and reimagine what and how we can actually make and help make communities safe. Because here's the bottom line. If you contrast, many communities which have a heavy presence of police to middle and upper middle class suburbs in America, you will not see that presence of police. But what you will see families who have an income that allows them to get through the end of the month. You will see good public schools. You will see people who have access to health care and can afford it. You will see people who have jobs. And so this has to be the conversation, which is, how are we going to be smart in achieving what should be our collective goal, which is that all communities are safe, and knowing that safe communities are usually safe because they are healthy because of a number of things, including the economy, including education. And
oh, the economy. Well, gee whiz, stop right there, if you will. The economy. I wonder how the Biden administration and the Harris administration managed to get there. Oh, but wait. Don't feel bad. There's more. Then, of course, she's talking about, spending your tax dollars for people that don't even belong in this country, illegal invaders.
Must be addressed. The bill also says, quote, every individual who is a resident of the United States is entitled to benefits for healthcare services under this act. Not every individual who's a citizen, but every individual who's a resident. Mm-hmm. So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
Well, that's a pretty succinct summary, I'd guess. And there is absolutely no equivocation on that. Well, you know what? Kamala Harris doesn't support police anyway. As DA in San Francisco, Harris purposely chose not to attach the death penalty to the suspect convicted of murdering a police officer in 2004. Here's a headline. Slain SF cop's family certainly not supporting Kamala Harris for president over her actions as DA in 2004 shooting. Isaac Espinoza, a 29-year-old husband and father, was shot and killed by then 22-year-old gang member David Hill during a traffic stop in the Bayview district of San Francisco the night before Easter. Harris, just months into her role as DA, got on television 3 days after the killing to announce that she wouldn't seek the death penalty, even before speaking with the heartbroken family. The family of a San Francisco cop shot dead in 2004 says they won't support VP Harris after she put politics before justice, adding that Donald Trump is the better option for police departments across the United States. Well, that should come as zero surprise. Kamala Harris is a complete corrupt leftist. Then, now, always, caveat emptor, know for whom you are voting. And then here's something interesting. If this were a standalone story, I'd say, well, this is a happy story. Kamala Harris prosecuted black men for smoking dope. During her tenure as California Attorney General, some 1,560 people were sent to state prison for cannabis-related offenses between 2011 and 2016, according to state corrections data analyzed by the Washington Free Beacon. This is the state's data itself. Leftists are saying, don't pay attention to that. Harris's record in California as an attorney general, district attorney, and prosecutor before her election to the Senate drew increased scrutiny as she entered the presidential arena in 2019 with voters seizing on her record. In 2010, California introduced a ballot measure to legalize marijuana in the state. Harris, like other prominent Democrats, opposed the measure known as Prop 10, raising concerns that it could lead to driving while high. A logical concern. Harris declined to join a bid to remove marijuana from the Drug Enforcement Administration's, the DEA's, list of most dangerous substances, while she was Attorney General and accused of failing to help the state's cannabis industry during a 2011 federal crackdown. But then, somehow things changed. But Harris, once a hard-nosed prosecutor, rallied behind the Biden administration's decision on October of 22 to pardon all federal convictions of simple marijuana possession, a surprise announcement delivered in the countdown to the midterm election. Here's a story I bet you haven't heard. Kamala Harris had a young black mother jailed for failing to have her child in school, for truancy, despite her child having some very serious medical issues. I'll wager this is a story you absolutely have not heard.
I intend to fight for Black Lives Matters. I intend to fight.
If Black Lives matter to her, why didn't I matter?
Because of truancy, California public schools lose $1.4 billion a year in funding. I want money.
It's about the cash, and she admits it. That's funny.
I don't agree what Kamala Harris did to my mom.
So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
And I spent a majority of my time here at the hospital.
When Kamala Harris was the California Attorney General, she had me arrested and prosecuted because my handicapped daughter was sick in the hospital and had missed some days of school.
I have sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a hereditary disease, and it is very, very painful.
That's funny.
In 2012, like all California parents, I received a threatening letter from Kamala Harris saying, "We'll go to jail for a year if our kids even miss 10% of school days." Little did I know, there was a warrant out for my arrest. All of a sudden, the police is outside my house, and they started banging on the door. They told me I was under arrest for my child missing school. I was shocked. I said, "But my baby is sick. The school knows that." And they said, "Go talk to Kamala Harris. Place your hands behind your back."
My mom did nothing wrong. We did everything we were supposed to. I was always bringing doctor's notes, always calling the school to let them know that I was in the hospital.
But my hell was just beginning. They gave me 2 charges. I spent the next 2 years in court fighting these charges. Kamala assigned her nastiest prosecutors to my case.
And I'm sure she had the money for defense attorneys, don't you think?
My homicide prosecutors, my gang prosecutors. And they went over there and I said, "When you go over there, look really mean."
All the time I had to spend going to court, I was struggling to care for my shame.
We are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law.
I lost my job and couldn't pay rent, and we got evicted. I became homeless. We had to move into a motel.
And I ended up being in the hospital a lot during her trial. And in that hospital stay was when I had my stroke.
I had a stroke about 4 or 5 days ago. And right now I'm doing pretty good. My hand is doing okay, I guess.
Let's be clear, my values have not changed.
Look, I am not a political person, but I want people to know what Kamala Harris has did to me. If she do it to me, she will abuse anyone if you give her the power.
The truancy program got a lot of criticism too. Did you actually lock anybody up?
No, we never locked anybody up. We did prosecute some cases, but far few, only about 20.
My message to all Americans, especially Black Americans, do not trust Kamala Harris.
Now, were you aware of that? My guess would be you probably weren't.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Here's another thing that I bet you weren't aware of. Kamala Harris refused to prosecute the Catholic Church when there were numerous cases of child abuse in San Francisco and other cities in California. Always spell it with a K. Here's a headline. Fact check. Kamala Harris covered up sexual abuse allegations as a prosecutor before claiming to fight for victims at the DNC. VP Kamala Harris bragged about her supposed passion for helping victims of sexual assault while speaking at the Democratic National Convention, ignoring her track record of failing to prosecute sexual abuse cases. This is particularly it causes me a great disturbance because I worked in child abuse and I handled child abuse cases. So she failed to prosecute sexual abuse cases within the Catholic Church, and even hiding vital records on abuses that had occurred when she was a San Francisco district attorney. During Harris's 13-year tenure as DA and then Attorney General, she failed to prosecute even one case of priest sexual abuse, even as at least 50 major cities brought charges against priests in the same period. Rick Simons, an attorney who represented victims of clergy sexual abuse in California, said Harris's action of covering up documents on the cases shows a pattern in practice and a policy of ignoring the rights of children by one of the largest institutions and in the city and county of San Francisco and in the Bay Area. Later in her convention speech, Harris claimed, as a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California, I stood up for women and children against predators who abused them. Lies. All lies. Cui bono. Who benefits monetarily? The question has to be asked. American media maggots weren't interested. They're still not interested. It was revealed that in addition to campaign donations from multiple law firms defending San Francisco priests against abuse claims, multiple board members of San Francisco Catholic Archdiocese-related organizations and their family members donated another $50,950 to Harris's campaign. Harris had no particular ties to the Catholic Church or Catholic organizations, but the money still came in large, unprecedented sums, a journalist wrote, an investigative journalist. Schweitzer, who wrote a book about this, alleged that connections Harris had with powerful people within the archdiocese influenced her to bury the records with allegations against priests. Her office would strangely hide vital records on abuses that had occurred. Kamala Harris, by the way, and I will end with this, I think roughly an hour and a half has been enough. Kamala Harris also plans to tax unrealized gains. If something went up in value, but you didn't sell it, you didn't make a profit, you'd still be taxed. Here's a quote from Financial. Kamala is proposing an insane 25% tax on unrealized capital gains. So imagine that you're buying shares for $100,000. This is for people on the upper strata of the wealth chart. And their value rises to $150,000. Now, under Kamala's plan, you'd owe taxes on the $50,000 gain, even though you haven't sold the shares or made any actual profit. Now imagine the stock's value drops back to $100,000 the following year. The gain you were taxed on has vanished. You've already paid a 25% tax on a gain that no longer exists, leaving you with a financial loss and no real benefit. Taxing unrealized gains would force investors to sell off assets to cover their tax bills, hurting long-term investment and economic growth. This isn't just risky, it's a recipe for a stock market crash and another Great Depression. Trust me, if this plan were achieved, the Democrats and leftists will be coming for everyone next. They'll be coming for you, and they'll be coming for me. Guaranteed. History proves this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I could go on, but I am literally running out of energy. I'm running out of time for the show. It's a Sunday. I should be doing other things, but I wanted to make sure that I immure this on the internet and have you refer to it for people who are yet unconvinced. There's an individual in the chat room said, I'm sorry, too little, too late. I guess we'll find out on Tuesday, won't we? I want to let you know, like Joe Biden, he was quoted as being on the wrong side of every issue. Kamala Harris is likewise on the wrong side of every issue. She will transform her external mouth music in order to accommodate whatever audience she appears before. She is a readily apparent chameleon, except, as she says, her views haven't changed. Remember that. Her views haven't changed. You've seen her original views. They were true then, true today, and they will be true tomorrow. Because, bottom line, she is a fundamental leftist, period. Don't listen to what she says. Examine what she's done and how she was raised. So, folks, caveat emptor regarding Kamala Harris. And with that, I say, be careful. Be very, very careful. Don't buy her crap. I want to end with this. This is just about the last show that I'm going to have to be able to say this. Don't expect a red wave. Don't expect a red tsunami. Every conservative, every Republican, every individual, every independent who leans conservative, who actually wants to save this nation, have to show up to the polls. Early voting in most states is done. That option was there. Make sure that you have your opinions heard. Make sure you show up to the polls with your ballot. Drop your ballot. Let your voice be heard. Every vote counts. You got to vote like Trump is down 20 points in the polls. You have to vote like your freedom and liberty, your family's freedom and liberty, your relatives' freedom and liberty, your kids, your grandkids, their kids. That freedom is on the ballot because it literally is. Democrats and leftists want you to stay home. They want to convince you of one of two things. They're so overwhelming. They have won so hugely that your vote doesn't count. And they'll say that and try to intimate that before the polls close, which is why you have to get to the polls. Or they'll say, oh, Trump is ahead so much that, if you actually wield your vote, you'll be piling on. And that's not necessary, and that's just not fair. I had, in closing, a civics teacher, Mr. Helms, in 1960s, in civics class, who said, and it true then, true now, going to be true in the future as far as I can tell, Democrats don't win elections, Republicans lose them. This election is ours to lose. We absolutely must not, we cannot lose. The country and every American in it, our freedoms are at stake. So please, you must not stay home. Please get out and vote. I wrap up with this. Every vote counts. Good night. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow on the Get Out to Vote show. I'm BZ. Have a great and wonderful night. Thank you.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.